At the beginning of the movie The Matrix, Thomas Anderson is in the process of changing his reality into something extraordinary. As we see news articles of Morpheus flicker across the computer screen, it's apparent that Mr. Anderson is on a trail that will lead down the rabbit hole towards the truth. Now, we don't live in a sci-fi movie, but what we can take from The Matrix is that we all have an unrealized version of our lives that is possible to unlock. As you'll see, the film provides a step-by-step blueprint to do just this. The key to beginning this journey is contained in this book that John Anderson pulls out of his shelf. It's titled Simulacra and Simulation, written by Jean Baudrillard. Baudrillard's main idea is that in modern society, the distinction between reality and simulation is becoming blurred, and this is an extremely hazardous phenomenon. The danger is that hyperreal versions of our lives, like Disneyland, are becoming more prevalent throughout society. The first step on Neo's journey, and our own, is to realize the ways we live in a manufactured reality. Other sources of simulated reality, according to Baudrillard, come from news, social media, advertising, fashion, and I'm sure you can fill in a lot more. In The Matrix, everything about reality is an artificial system of control. Now, in our lives, we probably don't live in a simulation in order to power an AI race, but we are nevertheless presented with dangerous mirages that can fool us. It would be wise to first humble ourselves and realize that our worldviews have most likely been compromised by a society that has created rules and limitations in our minds. Neo's journey begins, I believe, at the second step of his self-realization, and that's a search for a way out of this false reality. John Anderson knows something is wrong with the world. He's accepted to some degree that there's something else out there. He's heard about the Matrix, and he's searching for Morpheus, who he believes holds the truth. In our lives, the search for a port of takeoff on this long journey will take all different forms. But at this stage, just like the protagonist of the movie, we need to seek better information about the world. Most likely you're already on this path as well. Philosophy, history, psychology, spirituality, and science are all important areas of study. But there's one subject you can explore that will be more effective than everything else. Fast forwarding in The Matrix, the Oracle gives us the answer.
You know what that means? It's Latin. It means know thyself.
The more you truly learn about yourself, the more you will be able to spot where you have been delusional about the reality you are living. Only then will you obtain the moments of insight that could lead towards unlocking your true potential. I'll just give one real-life example here. Steve Jobs often talked about this realization that he had.
Life can be much broader once you discover one simple fact, and that is everything around you that you call life was made up by people that were no smarter than you. And you can change it, you can influence it, you can build your own things that other people can use.
This change in perspective allowed Steve Jobs to eventually start building computers in his garage, which led to the Apple empire. At this point, you might be thinking, that seems great and all, but how do I actually go about learning about myself? I think the best way is to pick something you want to achieve. It could be as serious seeming as getting a PhD, or as not serious seeming as becoming a world-class juggler. In the pursuit, and especially in the failures, you will learn who you are, your strengths, your weaknesses, your true interests. Going back to The Matrix, Thomas Anderson gets a phone call at work from Morpheus, who directs him away from the agents who are attempting to capture him. Morpheus then tells him that he needs to climb up a scaffolding to safety. Thomas Anderson has reached a major crossroads that we will all encounter in our lives. Philosopher Joseph Campbell dubbed it the refusal of the call. In the mythic hero's journey that drives so many of the myths and even movies we watch today, there's a point early in the story when the hero is not ready to move forward yet. Here, Thomas Anderson can't grasp the gravity of the situation, and he also can't overcome his fear of heights. And so he decides to go back into the window, which is almost a fatal decision. We justify this cowardice, usually by blaming external circumstances or people, but almost always it boils down to our own lack of resolve. What is stopping us is what author Stephen Pressfield calls resistance in his book, The War of Art, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with, and if you're not, please read this book immediately. Resistance is an almost supernatural force, or seen in another way, a sinister manifestation of our subconscious that stops us from achieving our goals we set for ourselves and reaching our true potential. Thomas Anderson almost physically dies because of his refusal of the call. Think about how many of our dreams have died because of the same fear he experienced.
Just breathe.
Neo has just reached a pivotal moment and the next step of his journey. After he realizes that the world is not what it seems, after he searches for the clues to true reality, he's presented with the famous red pill or blue pill. His next step is to take the red pill, to fully commit to the new version of his reality. In the movie, it's that the world actually is a simulation. In our lives, the red pill might not be as dramatic, but it is still no less profound. For Steve Jobs, it was that he understood that everything was created by people like him. For others, it could be believing that hard work and perseverance will lead to a better life, and that luck isn't as big of a factor as they thought. There are an infinite number of red pills you can take. The red pill or black pill communities started online are a good example of how a perspective shift can so dramatically change how you interact with the world. I make no judgments about any truth you find. I have to just say that you should think about if this new version of reality will truly help you achieve the life you want to create. So Neo has taken the red pill. He sees the true horrific nature of his false reality, that the world has been destroyed by a war between humans and AI. After we take the proverbial red pill, our journey will continue by seeing the world through this new lens. All of a sudden, certain activities take on more meaning while others fall by the wayside. Throughout The Matrix, there are a lot of references to Aldous Huxley's book, The Doors of Perception. The book is an account of his experience while taking a psychedelic. When this guy talks about mescaline, or when Morpheus talks about crossing through doorways, they're both allusions to this book. Huxley believed that we live with what he called a limiting valve of perception. Taking in raw reality would be too overwhelming, so our brains develop a way to limit the data to a trickle, to filter and constrain, and to essentially present a view of the world that is more manageable to live inside. When Neo takes the red pill, or when we take our red pills, this limiting valve is opened, sometimes a lot. It can be disorienting or even downright horrific, especially if we look back on our lives and realize we have been living a lie. To move past this stage, Neo needs to accept that everything he ever knew is fake. In the same way, we need to accept that we have lived a false reality, and that quite possibly we have wasted a good number of years of our lives. And it's at this point in The Matrix that Neo begins to make real inroads towards bending reality to his will. He acquires the skills needed to defeat the agents. Now in this movie, and in a lot of stories, this part of the journey is compressed in time. The classic training sequence is a part of movies we all know and love. Months, sometimes years of hard work are distilled into a couple minutes of editing glory. This is possibly where most myths and parables fail us. To sit down every day and work on the thing, whatever that is for you, is a battle that can be excruciating. Don't be fooled by these montages. The real work has to be done. So we see Neo just take a huge shortcut by downloading all this skill and knowledge. It's actually an awesome idea. I mean, who wouldn't want to do this? But now that he has all these skills, why doesn't he just go into the Matrix and destroy all the agents? He can't because there are still 2 more levels he needs to reach. The second to last step is that he needs to control his mind. His kinetics are off the chart. He's able to almost move like agents right away, and Morpheus truly believes in him. But he still has remnants of his old life floating in his mind. He just can't fully get rid of the nagging thought, what if he isn't the one? What if all this is just a waste of time? When he sees the Oracle, he's ready to renounce his true self. She never tells him he's not the one. He says it. When the Oracle tells him that either Morpheus will die or he will, she doesn't mean that Neo will die. She means that Thomas Anderson, his old self, will need to die. We're so close to manifesting the reality we have been working hard to achieve, but most likely there will still be certain things holding us back. We still have fear. Going back to the author Stephen Pressfield's life, he wrote his first novel and then immediately threw it all away because he wasn't ready to move forward. If you're starting a business, for example, maybe you know what you have to do, but you aren't fully committed. You aren't ready to sacrifice yourself fully to creating what you set out to do. So what usually happens when we're stuck at this stage, this is when all hell breaks loose and disaster strikes. Our resolve is tested, and what happens after the dust has cleared will determine if we reach the final level. Neo decides to go into the Matrix, practically committing suicide to save Morpheus. Although he must be afraid, he does what all heroes do and puts it all on the line, even his life. In the struggle to free Morpheus, he starts to realize something. He can do things like this. Miracles occur that help him on his path. Because of the final battle, Neo then moves on to the last stage. The last stage, if you haven't guessed it by now, is belief. True belief in yourself and what you're doing. Once Neo believes he's the one, he can literally fly. He's come a long way from being scared to climb up a measly scaffolding. If you have moved through all the stages laid out in the Matrix, and you truly believe in the life you're creating, everything will change around you. Your life will become unrecognizable. You will achieve your goals and then move on to even bigger goals. The Matrix is such an interesting movie because, like all great myths, it gives us an idealized roadmap to follow in our own lives. Just remember, it's one thing to know the path, It's a whole other thing to live it. The sad fact is that a large number of us will go to our graves without even attempting to embark on this quest for our higher selves. If we want to manifest our ideal reality and be the heroes of our own stories, Neo's journey in the Matrix can be an inspiration for us all.